Well, good evening, Ms. Kapowski. My name is Chris Ramsey. I have recently been hired as the Human Resources Director here at Invictus Solutions, and I am so excited to be a part of this company as I've watched it from afar for a couple of years as it started up and began to gain market share and produce excellent results. I believe that my skill set can really help this company go to the next level. So thank you so much for your time today. As we begin, what I'd like to do is propose that as we begin a new era in HR, that HR no longer has to be based on soft reasoning, but should be as analytical and data driven as any other management out there. And so, what I'd like to do today is propose three big ideas for how we might leverage HR analytics for Invictus Solutions here at our company and take our company to the next level. The first big idea is this: we can measure and improve individual and organizational performance through HR analytics. We can actually look at it, see the data, and improve performance both on an individual level and an organizational level. Through HR analytics, we can also make data-based strategic decisions. No more guessing about what is best, but we actually can look at measurements and metrics to see what we should do in a strategic way. And then lastly, I believe we can involve Invictus Solutions in our processes and our functionality. We can actually get better as a company, and I believe that my expertise in HR analytics will help us be able to do that. So for today's presentation, I'd like to really focus in on three main targets that I believe we can implement here in the company. The first is we can evaluate the cost of employee turnover. Secondly, I'd like to consider the ROI on a new EAP option that we have on the table. And then lastly, I want us to look at to calculate a training utility for some much needed management training that we have coming down the road. So let's first look at the employee turnover and what it's costing us. The reality is this, Ms. Kapowski, we have a pretty significant problem with turnover. As I reviewed the data from the first 2 years of our company's history before I came on average, we're losing 36% of our staff per year. Now, that's larger than the national average of 27%. Turnover in our country is a pretty significant problem. It's a $617 billion problem. But I gather that probably we don't know what it's costing us here at Invictus. And so let me propose one way of looking at what employee turnover is costing us. Not only is there a morale issue when we lose an employee, but also there is a significant financial impact. Now, I won't take the time to go through all of the details of my formula here, but just know that we are calculating the overall cost based on these metrics. We're looking at how much does it cost us in the separation, the time to take to interview the person who's leaving, and the HR administrative functions. How much does it cost to replace the person, the training, and the difference in performance from the person we had versus the person coming in. So if you take all those metrics and you look at our average weighted pay of $34 an hour, 41 cents, what we find is that the total cost for each employee who leaves on average is $22,000 a person. And that's costing us $400,000 annually, because if you look at our company size of 50 people, on average, we're losing 18 persons per year. This is a significant problem, which leads to the real question of what can we do about it, and why are people leaving Invictus? It's such a great company. Why are they leaving? And so let's look at that real quickly. Why are staff leaving? The two things we see is that, number one, as we look at research data from the exit interviews, number one is that people feel stressed and they're anxious. We have a high performing company culture, but it is stressful. Deadlines are rapid and there's a lot of pressure. And then secondly, there is a lack of training and skill building for our new employees. So how can we tackle these issues? What could we do to be able to save on turnover? Well, Janet down in HR has actually brought forward a great idea that I'd like us to evaluate and consider the return on investment for this employee assistance program. So if our number one problem is stress and anxiety in the workplace, how do we tackle that? Well, first consider this, that 79% of employers in the country offer some type of EAP. I noticed that as I came into the company, we do not currently offer any employee assistance programs, and so that puts us in the minority, and I'd like to propose that we actually start with this one. Janet's idea was this, that we actually employ a part-time mental health counselor to provide mental health counseling to our employees to help with stress and anxiety. I think it's a great idea. Now, do the numbers line up? It's $45,000 a year for this partnership. And so what I'd like to look at is that this partnership is projected to reduce stress-related turnover by 30%. And actually, a company across town uses this same counselor. And over the past 5 years, there's been about a 30% reduction in turnover for stress-related anxiety issues. And so if you look at our numbers in particular, Ms. Kapowski, what you'd see is on average, we're losing $400,000 a year in turnover. That's that percentage we looked at a minute ago. If we were able to keep 30% of those people based on the anxiety and stress related issues, we would be saving around $132,000 a year. Now, you pay for the counselor herself, and we are still coming out net positive $87,000. I think this is a strategic database decision that we need to make and move on. And I think that our employees will be really happy about that. We might see some reduction in turnover. So the last thing I want us to do, we've talked about the cost of employee turnover. We looked at the ROI. The last thing, and it also ties into our retention issue, is that we find that people don't have the training they need to do their job well, and specifically in management and leadership. And so let's calculate the training utility here. What we have, again, another great idea from one of our folks in our training department, has brought forward a training modality that targets leadership skill building in a 3-day boot camp. And so she's given me some information on this to share with you, and I've run the numbers, and I think that they're solid. But first, let's think about this way, that our job right now, we have a lot of different options we could choose for training, but we're trying to choose the training that has the greatest impact on managerial success by increasing the quality of leader manager that we have at Invictus, such that the training they receive makes them a better manager and better able to retain employees long term. And so as we look at this, the proposal on the table is for a training for 10 of our management staff in the company to be trained. The belief is, and the data on this particular training is that the effect will be for 3 years. And so I'm looking at this training utility and I'm running the numbers and looking at the 3-year effect. The deviation score is 0.73, which is really high. But again, this is about a 5-year program that we have seen the data on, that it's research-based, and it's really a strong determiner between the people who are trained versus who are not trained. The effect size is significant. Now, if you also run the numbers on what's the difference that we're paying out for the people who've been trained versus who have not, and the difference is almost a person a year. You remember earlier I showed you the $22,000 loss per person that we lose. And so it's almost apples to apples there, that the difference in the job performance is significant. Now, the training is scheduled to cost $5,000 per participant. So we're looking at a $50,000 investment here. But over time, if you run the utility in my numbers and in my calculator, what we're looking at is over 3 years, a training value of nearly $500,000. So again, I think this is a significant choice that we could make. I think this version of the training for management is also a really good one. When you look at the numbers and you run the data through our calculator systems, I think it is really a good call. So today we've looked briefly at 3 main targets for HR analytics. We've looked at the cost of turnover, and that is a significant problem for us, and we need to make some strategic decisions based on the data to help us alleviate that. So we've considered the return on investment for the counseling solution, the employee assistance program, and we've also run the data on training utility to see if this management training program that we have the option to use is going to be a good one. And I think it is. And so I hope that you have seen that we are able to use data to make strategic decisions that actually help our people. And in closing, I'll just close with a great quote that says, the goal is to turn data into information and information into insight. And I believe that's what I'm bringing to the table as the new HR director, is the ability to not just talk about soft skills, but also look at raw data and begin to make informed decisions based on that. Ms. Kapowski, I really do appreciate your time. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to making Invictus Solutions a better company with you as we move forward. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.